The Nigerians can be very nonchalant. Just like you mentioned earlier, you don't see a lot of persons with disabilities because society hides them. People say albino. That's disrespectful. A lot of runway shows never feature models with disabilities. When you go to the popular fashion weeks, they can just you see one person with albinism, one plus size model, or one person using crutches, and to them that's representation.
Globally, between 1.3 and 1.6 billion people live with a disability. That is roughly 1 in 6 people. According to UNICEF, excluding persons with disabilities costs low and middle income countries up to 7% of their GDP. That's 7%. So in emerging economies, that is the difference between stagnation and acceleration, between intention and infrastructure. In Nigeria alone, an estimated 25 to 30 million people live with disabilities. The 5-year transition period of the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Act has officially ended, and enforcement is no longer optional. Inclusion is no longer theoretical. So the question now becomes, are we building inclusive systems, or are we building systems that quietly exclude millions? Today I am joined by Cannes Lions winning creative and disability inclusion advocate Misturah Owolabi, who has spent years challenging industries to move from performative visibility to structural inclusion. Now, this is not just a regular conversation. This is not a charity conversation. This is an economic conversation. We're talking about the potential for economic growth by including those with disabilities. And now, let's begin. My name is Joy Abia, and I am your host on this space. Welcome to FemmeBiz. This is a space where we host intelligent conversations with women who are shaping the future of impact, policy, business across Africa and beyond. Hi, Abisola. Hi, Misturah.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Misturah. Good morning. Okay, so I'm actually very excited for what we're about to talk about. It's something I've never touched on. I've never even gone deep into it. I do like to include myself in charitable projects and all of those things. So this is a conversation that's going to give a lot of, not just women, men as well, awareness on this kind of topics. Now, I'm going to give you the floor to introduce yourself to my audience on what you want them to know about you.
Okay, thank you for speaking with me today. My name is Misturah Owolabi. I'm a communications strategist, a copywriter, and a creative. I'm also the founder and creative director of Misty Glam Company. Misty Glam Company started as a commercial modeling agency and has now transitioned into an inclusive talent management and disability advocacy agency, championing the representation of persons with disabilities in the media, beauty, fashion, and modeling industry. Over the last 5 years, we've been building a platform and a community for persons with disabilities to have access to opportunities. And this work has expanded into the Advocacy Pageant Network, the non-profit arm of Misty Glam Company, where we create pageantries, runway shows, and flip platforms that have historically excluded persons with disabilities, and then we use those platforms to advocate for them. We're currently now building Inclunum. Inclunum is a digital platform that would teach people disability inclusion. It would teach systems and organizations how to build infrastructure that automatically inclusive, and that's our way of responding to the knowledge gap that exists. Because a lot of times in the course of our work, people would tell you, oh, we didn't know that this was wrong, we didn't know that this is not respectful language for disability, we didn't know that this is how things are supposed to be. So Inclunum is closing that gap, and all of this started because during my work as a communication strategist working in advertising and media, I realized that there was a gap. And the gap was that every time we had campaigns and we wanted to execute them, clients were usually particular about the kind of talents that appeared in their campaigns on billboards. I remember being a young copywriter and suggesting that, oh, for a beverage brand, why don't we include children with disabilities in this campaign? And the whole room went silent, and people were looking at me like, and even the client was almost like, is there a World Disability Day coming up? And it just didn't make sense to me, because why do we have to wait for a special holiday or a day specifically for people with disabilities?
So I have to bring them in.
Exactly. And when you look at some of these brands, they cater to everybody. They will not discriminate if a person with disability wants to buy their products. But when it's time to represent them in campaigns, billboards, and ads, you will never see them. And that was what, made me decide to start something that would actually stand up for people with disabilities. And so that was how Misty Glam Company was birthed. And over the years, we now realized that it wasn't even just about getting them opportunities or putting them in the faces of people. We had to also change societal mindset. We had to question the systems that continue to make exclusion or disability inclusion difficult. So, and that's how the work has expanded over the years, and we're still doing it. And I mean, it's a lifelong quest.
Thank you so much for giving us the background on how you started the inclusion, your personal inclusion campaign. I was about to ask if it was like if you maybe have someone personally with a disability that may have actually like touched you in your heart, like maybe like what was like the source of the way to move, aside like the marketing campaign things you experienced?
There was no other motive. There was none. And I get this question a lot, which I think it's a bit problematic as well. But I understand why people would ask
the question,
to say, oh, do you have a disability? Do you know somebody with a disability? So I get the question a lot, so I understand that. But then there's none of that for me. I don't have a person with disability in my family, or even a close relative, or neither do I have a physical disability. But I just believe that you do not need to be affected by something physically for you to see that it's wrong.
Absolutely. Well done. Thank you so much. Okay, so you already talked about how you try to tell a brand to use people with disability for a campaign, and they sort of had a problem with it. So I want to ask, like, what would you say are the most common misconceptions that brands may have about people with disabilities?
Okay, so when it comes to brands want to do campaigns that reflect societal mindsets, and many of us in this part of the world, we have certain myths and stereotypes that we have against persons with disabilities. For example, people see people with albinism as deities. They see them as gods, or people that are not normal human beings. They see somebody with dwarfism, they see them as maybe mystical creatures. And brands want to cater to their audience. They know that this is societal mindset, so for them, they want to look a certain way. So every time we propose those models who are different, models with visible differences, clients will tell you it can't work because my audience won't relate, or they would think that this is what my brand is about. They are usually very concerned about this brand fit, almost like people with disabilities should not be associated with their brand, right? And that's where most of the problem comes from. Brands still do not see people with disabilities as humans that they should represent, or that should show up in their campaigns. And all of this stems from a larger societal problem, the way we as a collective we treat people with disabilities. Oh, they are different, they are not good enough, they are deities, they are mythical beings, all of this. And the media will always represent society. It will always show what we think, and that's what brands carry on. And that's why they always hold back to say, oh, we don't want to use them except there's a special day coming up. What would our customers think? What would our consumers think? What would they think of our brand? Almost like they're trying to maintain a reputation based on how they want to be perceived.
Like what you just said, I would like to also ask, now, like, typically, because you said now a brand, is there like a special day coming up? They are, probably tuned towards that most times, and maybe also it's definitely, maybe most likely also a societal problem too, because most time, I think personally, I don't think I've seen a lot of people with disabilities a lot. Like I don't see them on a regular. Like maybe I can go like a whole year without encountering people that are actually sort of different from me. So I think that, you know, this sort of conversation brings awareness to the fact that, okay, those people that exist, whether you live with them or not, and there doesn't have to be like a special thing to be happening for anything to for us to recognize and, like, you know, treat them as normal. Thank you so much. So do you think now, because of, like, supposing from that question that you said, whether there's something coming up, you know, a brand would ask sort of a question. So do you think there are brands that may still be doing like performative inclusion, like they're just doing this, like, okay, maybe when it's time to, we're just doing this because, yeah, there are people with disabilities, or like, are is there like a gap in that sense?
Okay, so I would say that 99.9% of brands are performative when it comes to inclusion. The 0.1% are probably brands in the NGO space, the non-profit space. But when it comes to actual brands, all of them are performative. And performative in the sense that even the ones that tell you, oh, we want certain kinds of talents with disabilities, they're even still very should I say, funny in the way that they select them. Let me give you an example. We have models with albinism, we have models with vitiligo, we have models with freckles, you know, visible differences of all types. And you get casting calls from clients to say, oh, we have this campaign and we want to use persons with disabilities. And then when they see the person with albinism, they say they want the one that does not have spots on her skin.
So
they
they're
want
picking.
the one, you know, they want the ones that look like they are mixed race. You know, those kind of things show you that they are not even ready, because if you want to represent persons with albinism, you have to show them in their true form. Many of them don't have spotless skins because of how prone they are to skin cancer and other medical conditions. But clients will tell you they are being inclusive, but then they will still demand certain things. For example, a brand would call for persons with disabilities, and even their facilities don't have ramps for somebody with wheelchair to use. That is still performative, because if you want somebody with a disability on your campaign or in your project, the barest minimum is even making provision for them to access your building or access the set where we're shooting the commercial or where we're shooting the campaign. So these are the issues, and it goes to show that these brands only do it to tick a box or to feel good about themselves or to just make Nigerians say oh for a while, and then they move on from it.
Okay, so now this lack of representation. First of all, let me ask. I think you already touched a little bit on that in the introduction with Misty Glam Company. So why does, like, you expanding across like fashion and media, like, why would you say, or tell us, why do you think for you it matters economically?
Okay, so basically, Misty Glam Company started as a modeling agency with a focus on persons with disabilities, and we're targeting the modeling industry. So we wanted more representation for persons with disabilities in the modeling space. But then we realized that there's a societal problem that we need to fix, and that's like visibility. Just like you mentioned earlier, you don't see a lot of persons with disabilities because society hides them. Somebody with a wheelchair cannot take a bus. They cannot go to certain places. They can't go to restaurants, because even most restaurants have stairs.
Yeah.
They don't have ramps that they can. So that's why they stay at home. The ones that are not rich, the ones that don't have money, can't take Uber. They can't take, they can't take buses. So that means they are always at home. People with albinism, for example, some of them can't afford sunscreen and they can't go out in the sun because they need sunscreen, they need protective clothing. So all of these issues, we saw that it was just beyond modeling. We had to bring it to the faces of people, let people see that these are the issues. And to do that, it means putting people with disabilities in places where you don't expect to see them. And that's where the idea of fashion came in. Right? A lot of people don't know that there are specific clothes that people with disabilities cannot wear. Wearing pants, for example, nobody designs for people with disabilities in Nigeria. They do that in other parts of the world, but they don't do that in Nigeria. Imagine fashion, now putting them in fashion, creating fashion shows. For example, this year we're looking at having an advocacy fashion show with 100 models with disabilities. The idea is for fashion designers to even see that there's a large market for you to tap into. Then for media, the media is like the gatekeepers. It is what is presented in the media that people would see. And that's why, when things go viral, it's because we keep saying it. So the idea behind us pushing all of these things through fashion, beauty, media is for representation. Let people see. Some people don't understand how bad exclusion is. They don't know that these things that I enjoy, for example, I'm actually privileged. For example, when we attend big events with 100 guests and above, there should be provisions for sign language experts. So nobody has ever
that has
considered
actually
that.
improved though.
Yeah, it has improved because the government is trying to enforce it. But nobody thought of that until we started seeing it. And that was when event organizers started saying, oh, it's a problem, let's solve it. So the idea of this representation is the places that you don't expect to see people with disabilities, we're going to put them there for you to actually see them and know that they exist, their pain exists, and so we must solve it together. Because what people don't see, they can't relate to. And that's like the problem that we're trying to fix.
Thank you so much for this. I personally, I think that the for this conversation going on, like I feel like there's everything that you've said has actually is meant to be said, or everything you've said is everything that this show is all about. But I'll go on asking some questions that are significant. So you mentioned the advocacy pageant network. So like can you just like tell us, aside the fact that you've already run down what it is about and why you're doing it, but like do you want to I would love for you to like maybe put it into like
More
why let's just into perspective, like maybe how people can even be a part of it, how women most especially, how do we even center women with it's not just women, right?
Not just women, we carry everybody along. Yeah.
Okay, so I would love for you to expand a lot more on the advocacy program you're running and what we need to know.
Oh, okay. So like I said earlier, Mystic Glam Company said as we are an inclusive talent management agency, and our job is to get economic opportunities for models with disabilities. So it doesn't mean that when clients approach us, we're doing free work. We represent, we train and manage persons with disabilities so that they can get opportunities from brands. But then we realize that these brands will not come. Many of them are still thinking about inclusion. They are still seeing whether it's brand fit. They are still considering whether it's good for their image or not. And that was why I created the Advocacy Pageant Network to become our non-profit arm, where we're going to be using events, runway shows, and pageants to create that visibility even before the brands come. So you will not necessarily put a person with disability on a fashion runway show, but with the Advocacy Pageant Network, we will create our own fashion runway show so that you brands can see it and see what it looks like, so that you can now consider it. So now, what we're doing with that is pageantry. Last year, we had the albinism advocacy pageant, and the idea was for women with albinism also want to participate in Miss World. They want to go for Miss Nigeria, but every time they go for things like that, the selection doesn't favor them. People are usually looking for the person with albinism that looks flawless, in quotes, with no spots on her skin. The representation is not there. So to change that, we created a pageant specifically for women with albinism, for the world to see that they can also be pageant queens. So that was what we did. We didn't wait for Miss Nigeria or the other pageant networks to say, oh, bring your people. We gave the world an example of what inclusion would look like with pageantry. So now, another thing that we're also doing is runway shows. Like I said earlier, this year, we're looking to set a record for the highest number of models with disabilities and visible differences in a single runway show. The idea is that a lot of runway shows never feature models with disabilities. When you go to the popular fashion weeks, they can just you see one person with albinism, one plus size model, or one person using crutches, and to them that's representation. Right? For us, we're making sure that everybody in that runway show is a person with disability or a visible difference. The idea is we're not waiting for the world to give them a seat at the table. We're creating our own platform. So it's the non-profit arm, because before we get the clients, before we get the brands that will actually use them, we need to show workings. We need to show the world that these people actually exist and put them in the faces of the brands that will now come for them. So that's what we're doing. and we're open to partners, collaborators. For example, the albinism advocacy pageant, we had a lot of makeup artists, photographers who volunteered their time, to do makeup for all our pageant queens. Photographers came, offered their services. So things like that is what we're looking to do with the runway show as well. We already have designers who are ready to design for persons with disabilities. We're creating a runway show that would let people see what fashion looks like when it's inclusive. When runway shows are inclusive, you can see what it looks like. And we're hoping that with things like that, we're not just making a statement or setting a record for the sake of it. We want to see the ripple effect in how often brands now start to pay models, not just call them and say, yeah, come and feature for exposure. We actually want them to earn a living from their talent and their skills. And so that's what the Advocacy Pageant Network is basically about.
Thank you so much. I'm just taking it all in, because I mean, personally myself, it's enlightening for me to okay, how do I, now, for someone who's watching this and is asking, now, how do I be a part of something like this that you're doing? How aside, I mean, I may not be I may not have a brand that can partner, but what possible and feasible ways can people, or let's say women, because now let's even start with this kind of, for a woman to be, for you as a woman to be running these things in front. I mean, first of all, it goes to show that I don't know how, I don't have the statistics on men that do stuff like this, but I know personally that when it comes to representation and inclusion, a lot of the time women actually lead the frontiers of all of these things, and it's impressive, but still is that it's still a problem. Why is it only women? Are we only taught, the only ones touched emotionally by all of these things? Those are questions.
I think it's because we understand that, first, as a woman, you're already facing some challenges, but when you're not a woman with a disability, it's triple. It's double. Even research and lived experiences have shown that women with disabilities face more social barriers to relationship, to job opportunities, almost like they are helpless times two. So that's why I believe that you don't have to be directly affected by something. Because sometimes I think about it and say, when I face a challenge, I say, and I'm a non-disabled person, this is affecting me so badly. So imagine a woman with a disability. And that's why this is so passionate, or I'm so passionate about this. And that was why even our first pageant show, it was for women with disabilities.
So how can we, like I asked earlier, how could anyone be a part of, support what you're doing?
Oh, okay. So
even if we're not a brand, or we don't have a company or something.
Honestly, it takes a community. So we're always welcome to take volunteers. Like last year, we had a lot of volunteers, people who helped the women dress up. They helped, with a lot of things, ushering. We had community managers. We had content creators that helped create content. We had designers, photographers, like I said, makeup artists. We had jewelry brands that gave us jewelry for the women. All the dresses that women wore for the pageants, they were given by designers who just wanted to support. There are different ways, different skills that you can bring on board as a community manager, a content creator, a media person. Even our host on that day, red carpet, everybody did it for free. Basically, most of the things that we paid for were the food, the prizes and stuff like that, but everything was carried. We were carried by community.
Please, how can I be a part of what you're doing? Because I really would love to.
You're a media person, so we're definitely looking for somebody who can help with media amplification. We're looking to have a short documentary before the main show, so maybe anybody that can help tell the stories, interview the participants and all of that. Yeah, we're definitely open to collaborate and partner.
How else, so how can we reach you? The audience that's watching, how can we reach you?
So
Instagram and profile, how do we email?
Yes, so you can reach me directly via email at misturah@mistiglamcompany.com. Misturah is spelled misturah@mistiglamcompany.com. We're on social media, Misty Glam Company on Instagram, Advocacy Pageant Network on Instagram. On Twitter, we are Misty Glam Core. Core is spelled CORP. But then you can always reach me. We also have like an active WhatsApp line. I don't know it. But yeah, but Misty Glam Misturah
Maybe
at
I'll
Misty
get
Glam
I'll get
Company.
the number
the
from you,
details.
all of the details, and we'll put it on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. That what you're doing is truly amazing, honestly. Thank you. If you're enjoying this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment if you want to ask any specific question about this topic, people with disabilities and inclusion. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's talk about inclusion. Right. What exactly is the problem that we're trying to solve with, that you are trying to solve with inclusion? This is phenomenal, all that you're doing. Are you doing it alone? Do you have a team? Do you work with people?
I have a team, a small team, but all of this is fully funded and fully sponsored by myself and my team.
Okay, so it's like you government sponsorships?
No, we don't. Fully funded, self-sponsored.
Self-sponsored. But you're open to sponsorships and
definitely, as long as it's not partisan.
And what's partisan?
Supporting a government, supporting a party.
Oh, okay.
As long as it's neutral sponsorship.
Okay. All right. Amazing. All right. So for Inclunum.
Okay. So Inclunum started last year.
Okay.
And it's a tech company. We're building a tech platform to solve the problem of disability education. So one thing we realized is a lot of people want to be inclusive, but they were just not taught how to be. Nobody taught us disability language. It was even actually when I got deep into the work that I realized that language is actually the first step to inclusion. What do I mean by this? People say albino. That's disrespectful. The correct language is persons with albinism. It's a person first language for people with disability. A lot of people don't know that. Every day on social media, we correct people that say, oh, he's a dwarf, he's a retard, he's a crippled. All of these are terrible language. And most of people don't know this. Some of them are not even trying to be disrespectful, but that is what they heard growing up. Nobody taught us in a classroom and said, oh, this is how you treat a person with disability. But every day we have to learn. We have to unlearn. I unlearned a lot of things as well. For example, when I used to see a person with disability, I used to go, you are so inspirational. It's actually wrong. They want to feel human. They don't want you to see them and be saying, oh, you are so great, you are so awesome. They want you to recognize them for their work, for their talent, not for their existence. I had to unlearn that as well. So that was where we realized that gap needed to be filled. A lot of organizations don't even know. So maybe we realized that to solve that, we needed to build a platform that would educate people first so that they can see what the problem is, and then we can now solve it together, because it takes more than my team and I. It's a global problem.
So it's an educational platform.
Yes, that teaches. We're going to be having modules, courses, and programs that help you learn about disability inclusion. It's also going to be having a community platform within it where persons with disabilities can also get opportunities, connect with other persons with disabilities, even where people can volunteer for disability organization as well.
Amazing.
But the major feature is the disability education part of things, where you can type a sentence and ask, the platform whether it's correct. Even as an employee or an employer, you can take courses for yourself and some of your staff to see how to treat your colleague with a disability. So all of this is what we're trying to build within that platform: a learning infrastructure, a community building infrastructure, and they were even looking to expand it to become a plugin where other apps can plug into Inclunum, so that when people with disabilities use them, it automatically becomes inclusive for them. So I'm thinking even in terms of colors. A lot of us don't know that even, let's say you design something for social media, it has to meet an inclusion requirement. Some colors are too bright for persons with disability. Some colors are not good enough. Sometimes when we write, some people don't put captions in videos. That is not meeting the inclusion requirement. All of these things are simple. We don't know them, and we believe that we cannot say, oh, people are intentionally being wicked to people with disabilities when we haven't even taught them yet. So that was why Includum had to come in. And we're still building that, and we're hoping to launch, before Q3 this year.
What are the behavioral shifts that people need to make? I think you already touched a little bit on that, on like addressing them.
Yeah.
Are there any extra things that we need to, like a normal, like the norm, let me put it, how we need to address or speak about, people with disabilities, or speak to,
there's language, there's accessibility. The buildings that we have, when we build staircases, we don't put ramps. You're automatically saying that somebody with wheelchair is not welcome, because most of them don't like to be carried. Imagine a young woman with a young woman that uses a wheelchair for support. She wants to attend an event, and you're telling her they have to carry her up the stairs. These are the issues. Accessibility is a big problem. Accessibility not just in terms of even the structures of our buildings, in terms of applying for things. A lot of people with disabilities are not included even in digital processes. For example, people who are blind, there are certain things. They also use mobile phones, right? Screen readers. A lot of us, when we write captions on social media, we don't put the ALT text that explains what that image is saying, so that it helps somebody who use a screen reader or a screen reading app to hear what is being said, or what has been written in a design, that has no audio. Things like that are very important. We don't know, even for us as an organization. I'm currently writing a book. It's a dictionary of disability inclusion. I realized that there was no book that that would teach anybody about disability inclusion. So I'm creating a book that has letters A to Z. A means this, and I explain what it means for disability. Things like that. So even while writing the book, the designers have had to work with, I had to teach them how to design for persons with disabilities. The colors, you cannot, the font, the size of the font. And one thing we don't know is that some of us even just consider physical disability. There's also the understanding that there are invisible disabilities, right? ADHD is a disability. Anything that impacts your life is a disability. Using glasses is a disability. We don't know that. Wow. A lot of people don't even want to accept it. They say, God forbid.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Being dyslexic is a disability. All of these things are also part of what we want to teach. The knowledge gap is very wide. So we're trying to close that gap so that the world can work together and become more inclusive. Because whether we like it or not, people with disabilities make up 1/3 of the entire world population, and we cannot just leave them hanging, because we're losing money to the table as well. Just like you mentioned in your introduction, economic opportunity, so many things that we can achieve together in the world if we included them. So those are part of the issues.
I mean, before I even ask any of the questions that I want to ask, Misturah has already she has already touched on everything, and that's really inspiring. Thank you so much. So I think we'll be wrapping up really soon, because we've practically touched on everything.
I started my career as a creative, a copywriter. So I write campaigns, scripts, radio ads, the whole 9 yards. That was how I started my career. And over the years, I've been opportune to work with the leading marketing and advertising agencies in Africa, from Noaza Communications, Inside Publicis, Extreme Ideas, Web Coopers, Share Better, across all platforms, the digital only agencies and the 360 campaign agencies. So as a copywriter, I've also moved significantly in my career. Started as a junior copywriter, to becoming group head of a business unit and the creative lead of a business unit. So working with these brands, that was where all of the gap that I noticed. But then working professionally, I've always been a storyteller. I like to tell brand stories in a way that resonates with the audience. So, and I think my biggest strength is the fact that I'm able to spin a brand story and make it emotional enough for people to connect. And that is one of the things that helped me in my career. In addition to all the mentorship that that I've significantly gotten as well. So working with these brands, from the fintech brands, the ones in the financial sector, to the fast moving consumer goods, to brands in across different industries. My career has been significant because I've been able to contribute to campaigns that go beyond just numbers, or helping clients to achieve their commercial goals. For example, my career brief was working on the Airtel campaign. You know, the 3G is good, 4G is better, and the data is live campaign. And if you know Airtel was like the first brand that
Oh, you're
started
part of
storytelling.
yes,
Exactly.
yeah.
You know,
It
telling
was a good
stories
brand.
with families,
Yeah.
with friends, using analogies and all of that. And that was what brought, a lot of brands into that space to say, oh, we want to start telling more emotive stories. So I worked on campaigns like that. And then for the Cannes Lion Award, it was a campaign that I worked on at Extreme Ideas. And what we did also was to solve a problem. It was in partnership with an NGO in Rivers State. And the problem was that people in Rivers State, they were exposed to suits as a result of illegal oil refining. So it was affecting the health of the residents, making them sick, and even cutting their lives short. And the problem that we noticed was that if this continued, these people were going to just keep dying, and we needed government to take action against all the illegal refining going on in the states. And so we created a campaign that would get Nigerians to also see the problem. And that's like almost like my strategy when I do any kind of work, whether it's creative writing or even my talent management agency, including the first thing is always to solve a problem. And we realize that Nigerians can be very nonchalant. If you don't tell them what this problem means to them, they will not do anything about it.
That's true.
And so we created a website that would allow Nigerians to check how long they had left to live. So if you've been living in River State for this number of period, you need to find out how long you had left. And to do that, we got data from the World Health Organization and other environmental data that would help to check the lifespan of Nigerians. So the average lifespan here is like 55, 60 years old. So we imputed all that into an algorithm. So when a user comes on the website, you type in your name, your age, and how long you've lived in that area, and they will give you a prediction of how long you had left to live. With that kind of thing, it shocked Nigerians to see that, oh, I've actually been exposing myself to a lot of things, and it's impacting my life. And for every time anybody uses that website, it sends an automatic message to the lawmakers in your area, a petition to say, please do something about this. So if 1,000 people visited the website, 1,000 letters will be generated.
Wow.
So that was why, the results were amazing. It was impactful. And that was why Nigeria and West Africa won the first Cannes Lion with that campaign.
Okay, so it's Cannes Lion, not Cannes.
Cannes Lion.
Forgive my...
That's fine. I mean, it's a French word, okay. So I mean, we might both be wrong, but we call it Cannes Lion. So so that's like my journey so far. And now I've transitioned to public policy as well. So I'm in the public policy space because I realized that there's not so much that a person can do. If government does not put these measures in place, no private individual can make any change. I can't force companies to take models with albinism. I can't force them to put ramps in their buildings. I can't force them. But public policy is the only way to do that. So now I'm within that space, working in communications in the public policy space, ways to get government to become more accountable
about this,
to put our public resources into good use, to budget for people with disabilities and take our laws from, we have this law, and then push for enforcement, push for measures to be put in place. That's where I'm at currently.
Like for how long have you been here now? Like in public policy?
In the past 2 years, I realized that it's more than just communication, more than just storytelling. We need to actually hold government accountable. And that was why I said, we're open to funding as long as it's not partisan. Government needs to do their jobs. We can push for inclusion from today till tomorrow, but if the government is not doing it, nobody's going to move a needle.
You're right.
So that's where my career is at.
You're absolutely right. I mean, so now what are those major, or should I say the policies? What are the policies the policies right now, based on like the inclusions for people with disabilities now? How, how far are we from actually being at a global level in terms of like this inclusion for Nigeria's government?
We are very far. You know, the problem with Nigeria is not that we don't have laws, because we don't enforce the laws. There are a lot of acts, a lot of bills that have been passed for persons with disabilities. In fact, for our last event, we partnered with LASODA. LASODA is the Lagos State Agency for Disability Affairs. And every day, even LASODA, you know, puts up press releases asking for skit makers to stop using persons with disabilities in derogatory skits, stop talking about them disrespectfully. But the problem is enforcement. The laws exist, but like anybody can break the law and nothing will be done to them. People walk away. Ideally, everybody planning an event should have a translator, a sign language translator. Now, I mean, more people are taking it up because it looks good on camera. It makes them feel good. But then it is supposed to be a compulsory thing. It's in the law. Organizations are supposed to have ramps for people with wheelchair. It's in the law. But nobody's beating them or nobody's arresting them.
What are practical ways to do for this enforcement now?
The most practical way is to tie it to economic, should I say, economic consequences. When organizations know that they can lose their licenses, they can be shut down and closed down just because they don't meet certain requirements for inclusion, then they'll start behaving. For example, we go to some castings and they'll turn down the models and say they don't want this person, are not looking for them. This should not be. It is discriminatory against persons with disabilities. For example, if there are agencies that we can report these things to and they take it up and such brands actually lose, like they get fined or something, these things will change. The first way is to find a way to tie compliance to economic consequences. You don't meet inclusion requirements, you get fined, you get shut down, your company gets blacklisted. Those are the things that can push people to actually do this thing. But when they know that nobody's watching us, we can do anything we like. We can push, we can say no to people with disabilities, we can treat them unfairly. For example, the Albinism Association of Nigeria, and they're really doing an amazing job. I'm giving them a shout out right now. They protect people with albinism in Nigeria. So let's say you have a person with disability has issues with their landlord, they are being discriminated against. Their members will go and their escorts will go and fight. Not fight physically, I mean, but stand up for them. You know. But without laws that, let's say somebody with albinism has been discriminated upon and their escorts they go and protest and stand up for them. But there are no laws that will punish the person. It just ends at people sharing their grievances and that's how it ends. The laws don't enforce anything. It's just there for decoration. I'm very sorry to say, but it's just there for being there sake.
So which means you in public policy, like so what's like your own action plan, I want to say, like in terms of making this happen? Because now we have there's a thing where we're about, let's say 5, because it's also a numbers game in Nigeria too, and on the policy level too. Because if laws are passed and all of those things, now there are people not exactly, this enforcement is not happening as often as they should, right? So there's a place where people will talk, but nothing is done about it. Now, you coming in, how do I say, your own action plan is? Are you going to, in terms of I want to be here, I want to set the laws, I want to push for enforcement, but how are you planning to do that?
Okay, so my work in the public policy space is more of advocacy directly to governments. You know, like I said, we're making governments accountable. So when things like budget conversations come up, for example, government, for example, right now there are a lot of proposed budgets everywhere. We question why there are no provisions for persons with disabilities. We petition these things. we speak with government officials, we organize dialogues, get them to see why there's need for this. It's advocacy, but on a government facing level. What I've been doing so far has been on
To people.
yeah.
Okay.
Now it's government, because I'm not in government. I'm not directly in government yet. I might be considering that in the nearest future. But then right now, what we're doing is we want government to see the gap. They don't see it. For example, there was a time that when it comes to women economic empowerment, the funding that was usually added to the budget was low. Even right now, for girl child education, the education budget for young girls in some states in Nigeria is less than 1%. So these are the issues. When people people in public policy start to push for these things, I know that
It's going to be wrong.
but then we need to keep calling governments accountable. Even calling them out on social media, arranging for dialogue with the citizens, getting them to see countries that are doing better than we are and why they've put these measures in place, and then seeing if we can drive change, and also making sure that when we have lawmakers who are genuinely interested in these things, we even provide like research and data that will help them see the need to include disability enforcement in the next law, the next bill, and even in the budget. Disability empowerment, putting it in the budget. Right now, what we have is giving them crutches, wheelchair, and just doing picture and paparazzi on what disability.
It needs to go beyond that.
It needs to go beyond that. So when we see things like that, we call it out. We say you're not doing enough. It's not just about the photo ops or anything. So that's where I'm currently at now with my advocacy, government facing. I mean, it's going to take a lot of years. Facing just Nigerians has taken, how many years? Imagine now facing our government who are even lacking in other areas. But we hope that, soon Nigeria will catch up.
Wow. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, Ms. Tura. Thank you so much. You are very intelligent in what you do, and you are also very passionate. I see that from the conversation. Thank you so much for bringing all of this to our awareness. And we do hope that this conversation does empower everyone to do the most that they can daily, to make sure that we are, thinking of the person who may not be like you or is probably not like you, right? In every dealings that you have, that's in business, personal communication, your stories, your everything, honestly. Okay, so now we're rounding up. We've sincerely touched on everything. Right. My last question was going to be how we could redesign, like how Nigeria probably approaches all of these things. But I think maybe on a final note, I'd like for you to maybe say a thing or two to, the viewers who are watching, and like maybe to specifically a woman, because I really do hope that someone like what this conversation is, it reaches those with disabilities too, and then they will they feel like, okay, yes, something is coming up, like we are doing, there's hope for us, so I'd love for you to give like maybe a word or two, I mean, in honor of Women's Day as well, to a woman who is, a woman living with a disability. What would you like to say to them?
Okay, so my message to any woman living with a disability, whether visible or invisible, a visible difference or anything that makes them feel like they are not regular, I'll first like to say that you don't owe anybody an explanation for your existence. You deserve to live unapologetically. You deserve to achieve all your goals. Your life was not meant to be an inspiration to people, and even if you want it will be on your own terms. I want you to remember that you don't have to prove your humanity or prove whether you are worthy to anybody. Any goal that you have set your mind to achieve, you will definitely achieve it. And even though the world has not caught up with inclusivity yet, I believe that someday we would. But even before then, you do not have to hold yourself back. You do not have to stop dreaming or stop thinking that you can achieve anything that a non-disabled woman cannot achieve. I understand that the world is harsh, the world is hard for you, but I genuinely believe that you were meant for so many great things. We're meant for so many great achievements, and I believe that you're going to achieve them. So continue to live on your own terms. Continue to make your own rules. You do not owe anybody an explanation. You do not owe anybody humility or have to perform or overcompensate for the way that you look or your physical appearance. You are worthy. You are worthy the way you are. You are worthy by your existence alone. You deserve everything that a non-disabled person deserves. And this International Women's Day, I'm sending you nothing but love. You have the same rights as any other person, and I totally believe that you can achieve anything you put your mind to. And I pray that the world continues to be kind to you, kind to your dreams, and support your dreams.
Thank you so much, Misturah. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having
I
me.
hope that you had a nice time here with us.
Yeah, I totally did.
All
I
right.
did.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of FemmeBiz. I still remain your host. I'm Joy Abia. Please do not forget to like, comment, and share on this video, and follow us on all social media platforms at Speed360 TV on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We're happy to take your questions and take any comments that you have regarding this episode. And if you'd like to, be a part of what Misturah is doing with, her advocacy program, please do reach out to us personally and maybe send a message to all of her handles. That's, the contact information that we'll put in the description. Thank you so much again.